As most of you probably know, the Apostle Paul wrote 14 of the 27 books of the New Testament. Fully half of the books of the New Testament were written by him. God used him in a great many ways. Now, 3 of these books of the Old Testament are what are known as the pastoral epistles, 1st and 2nd Timothy and Titus in particular. And in them, Paul is writing to a couple of young men that he likely had a hand in bringing to Christ, and who then were trained under him, mentored even perhaps, and then sent out to minister, Timothy and Titus. I want to spend some time looking at some of the verses of the little book of Titus. Titus is interesting because Titus was a pastor on the island of Crete. Now, actually, Crete was a series of islands, and there were, in fact, probably several small churches amongst these islands, and Titus was called to be their pastor. Now, if you look in the first chapter there, you'll see that Paul gives Titus the qualifications for elders, and then in the second chapter, he starts talking about the conduct of the believers in the churches. And he's instructing Titus, I should say, and encouraging him as he teaches the people and teaches them how to live the Christian life and teaches some of them how to be leaders in the church. One of the things that's interesting when we look at the book of Titus is the island of Crete itself. Perhaps you've heard someone refer to some uncouth person as a Cretan. That saying comes from the people who lived on the island of Crete. They were known to be uncouth. They were known to be blasphemous. They were known to be far from God. And so here's Titus on this series of islands, ministering the gospel, raising up leaders, teaching people how to walk with Christ. And he's dealing with a bunch of Cretans. He's dealing with a bunch of people who actually, not unlike us, were far from God. And I want to just draw your attention today to Titus chapter 2 and verse 11, which says, "For the grace of God has appeared, bringing salvation for all people." And I realized as I was reading through that verse the other day that the difference between who I am today and when I used to be a Cretan is simply the grace of God. If it wasn't for the grace of God, I often say this, if it wasn't for the grace of God, I don't know where I would be, but I wouldn't be here. And the same is true for you. Now, over the next few weeks, we're going to start looking at some of these verses in Titus 2 and probably on into Titus 3. But would you just take a moment today and pause and thank God for his grace that has appeared in your life and has meant salvation for you and life change and involvement in what God is doing in this world? I know I'm thankful for it, and I hope you are too.